Today we are doing section 1.3. So, 2 classes ago, we had this blob and we found where the center of the blob was. Last class, we talked about how spread out the blob was. This class, we are going to say, where is this piece of the blob relative to the rest of the blob? Or where is this piece relative to this piece? Or where is this relative to the center? So basically, where are things within the blob or relative to the center of the blob? So just like before, so we're going to ask, where is an individual score in the blob? Where is a score in relation to its center? And where is a score in relation to another score? So these are measures that are designed to give us an indication of where something is within the data block. We have 4 that we're going to do. Z-score, quartiles, deciles, and percentiles. Now, just like with measures of central tendency, I said the mean is going to transfer through the whole semester. We're going to use it the whole semester. None of the other ones we'll see really beyond the first section. And measures of dispersion, I said standard deviation and variance are the 2 that are going to carry on for the whole semester. For this, the Z-score is the one that's going to carry through. After section 1, you will not see quartiles, deciles, and percentiles again. All right. So the Z-score. The Z-score is the number of standard deviations that a given score is above or below the mean. So, if this is my mean, and this is my score, so and this could be an individual person or a marker or whatever, how far is that from the mean in standard deviations? And if it's above it, it's going to be positive. If it's below it, it's going to be negative. So this can come in handy because it allows us to compare scores within a population, but it also lets us compare scores that are not necessarily in the same population. That might not make a lot of sense. Let's look at it this way. Let's say that you are taking my stats class, and a friend of yours is taking the same stats class, but with a different professor. You take your first exam, and your friend takes their first exam. You get an 80, and your friend gets an 85. Who knows more about statistics? There's no way to answer that. Think of it this way. What if I am an extremely difficult grader? What if your friend's professor is an extremely easy grader? Or maybe the difficulty of our exams are different. The quality of the education is different. I mean, there's all sorts of variables that go into figuring this out. But if we use the Z-score, then we can tell who knows more about statistics. All right. Now, granted, some of you are taking this class because your friends told you, oh, you got to take his class. Some of you are in this class and your friends warned you, don't take his class, but you had no choice because it's the only time you could take it. Some of you, probably most of you, just saw an empty slot and that was a convenient time for you, so you just signed up for the class. So given that, the people that are in this class are pretty much random, or similar to the people that are in your friend's class. So there shouldn't be any difference as for the class as a whole. So, if you got an 80 and your friend got an 85, and your Z-score was, let's say, 2, which means your grade was 2 standard deviations above the mean, and your friend's score was a -3, which means their score is 3 standard deviations below the mean, then you know more about statistics. Because remember, the population of the classes, or the people in the classes, are the same. You know, they're random samplings from Fisher's population. So your grade is above the average by quite a bit. Your friend's grade is below the average in the class by quite a bit. So what that tells you is that my exam was just more difficult, that's all. So, but you can compare to see, you can compare and see where you fall relative to your friend. All right. So when I first came to Fisher, I went here for undergrad. The very first class I ever took at Fisher was in this classroom. It was a lecture hall like it is now, but it was straight across. And give you a little background, in high school, I did extremely well in math and science. I got hundreds on all of my Regents exams except for one. I got a 99 on one of them. For all of them. English and history was another story. Barely passed those. So I'm definitely a math and science person. So when I came to Fisher, I was a physics major. That didn't last long. But I was a physics major when I first came here, and all math and science. So my very first class I ever took at Fisher, first class ever, was in here, Chemistry 101. So I come in, and I sit down. It was like 8:30 in the morning. It was brutal. It was interesting. I took notes, and back then, when you're a first semester freshman, you go to the library and study every day. That lasted like a week. And I'm all gung-ho because science is easy for me. My first exam I ever took in my college experience was in this room, in Chemistry 101. And I took the exam, and it's a little challenging. And I go away, come back 2 days later, my very first exam grade I ever got in college. I'm sitting up there, professor hands like 2 exams back before I get mine back. I got a 48. I had my first panic attack of my life. I'm just like, this is supposed to be the easy part of college, and I hadn't even gotten an exam in English and history back yet. I was dying. I'm like, I'm going to get thrown out of Fisher. My life's over. What am I going to do? The whole bit. And I'm like, shaking. So the professor hands back all the exams. Little did I know, no one else was doing any better than I was doing. So after he hands them all back, he goes up in front of the room and announces that there's this insane curve. It turned out with my 48 was actually an A. Right? So I went from like the depths of hell and panic attack to like way up here, all excited. It was like this huge emotional roller coaster. Right? I won't tell you who the professor was that is still currently teaching me. Everyone knows. That's so funny. All right, and it's on video. All right, now, I really enjoyed him as a professor, but seriously, he messed with my mind, because every exam, you get it back and be like, 37. I wonder if that's an A, right? Because then you'd be like, yes, it's an A, and no, it's not an A. So every exam, I would get all these A's, but yet I failed in reality, right? I remember the last exam, I got it back and I got like a 68 on it. I'm like, whew, I dominated this exam. I got a C because everyone else did better than me. So what happens is you're competing against the other students. So this was the weird thing. I mean, it totally messed with my mind. Before an exam, I would like look at everyone and think, how much are they going to study for this? Because you only have to beat them, right? That's all it is. You have to beat the person that you're in class with. So I'm like looking at people thinking, wait, there's a party this weekend. Remember, there used to be a bar on campus. So there's this huge party. Let's see, they're not going to be functioning. I have to study this much. Or it was like on Monday and Wednesday, everyone's going to study, I got to study a lot. So it was like this balancing act. But think about it. If instead of putting my grade on, he put my Z-score on, my mind would still be somewhat intact. Because I would get it and see, 2.8. That means it's 2.8 standard deviations above the mean. Remember, if this is somewhat symmetrical, bell-shaped and all that, 100% of the scores are going to be between +3 and -3 for these Z values. So if I'm close to a +3, I got an A no matter what in that class, no matter what. So if he had done that, I wouldn't have had this, seriously, up and down. It was a nightmare for me. And that's all that has to be done. So it gives you an indication of where you fall in the blob. So if we look at the blob again, let's assume this is just... Let's just assume this is like in a straight line. So if the mean is here, and I've got a negative z value, my score is going to be down here someplace. If it's positive, it's going to be up here someplace.